we'll just kind of flip through some things, you guys. So quick review, if you last review of the things that we've talked about. Don't know how long it'll take it to get there. Mount Everest. Okay, we're almost there. The Catalyst, that was good. Didn't Jen? Told a few. Uh-oh. Come on. Why is it stopping? She got tired. So I'll keep talking. Maybe it'll come through. But there are times when it's win or lose. And if you're on a relay team, and right now I have a granddaughter who is on the, what do you got, 4x1 relay. Any weak leg on that relay that you can't depend on, you know, am I in the wrong? So I don't know, it just switched. That's the last page, so all of it didn't come through? Okay, so it's still not doing right. All right, so I can email this to any of you who want it, so you can get it later, so just make sure I have your email address. And so it was really a pretty picture. I could, but on a relay team, if everybody doesn't do their part, if you don't learn how to get the stick, the baton in where you're supposed to, or learn to be in that range, that you cause the team to lose. But sometimes the situation that a person is dealing with is not a matter of just, okay, everything's just frozen up here. It's not a matter of win or lose. It can be a matter of life and death. There was a story in the book about the Loiseau family, and they had a demolition company. And so they would implode buildings. Started in 1957. I can remember that date because that was the year I was born. Good year. But if they could not depend on each person in that family, each part of that team, to have those who were carrying the dynamite, who were setting them in the right places, and then the timing of setting them off, if they didn't get that done, it could be disastrous. It could mean a life or death, because one of the stories that they talked about was when they had to implode the Omni, the ball, they were going to create a new ballpark playing in Atlanta. And it was wedged in between, it's by the CNN Center and some other things. And so you've seen buildings being imploded before, you know, unless it's in a space by itself. That's a lot of brick and mortar coming down. And so they had to implode this building, but they had to have it angled just right, placed just right, because they needed the walls to fold in and not out. Because if they went out, they were going to mess up somebody else's property, people not prepared. And sure, by that time, they had everybody moved out of the way. But not only did they have to have the explosives in the right place, they got to wrap the building, wire the building, whatever you need to do to keep danger, to keep this from becoming a disaster rather than a desired outcome. And so you may not be in that kind of business. It may not be a win or lose or a life or death situation. But all of us have been in situations where accountability was important. And this law of accountability is clearest when the stakes are high, like in that dynamite situation. Or if you're trying to, if you're at the Olympics, if it's a goal, you know, and you're messing up on that relay, you know, you don't get a second chance. There's just that one race. But also in our everyday lives. I was at a restaurant earlier today, and my friend put in an order. She said, I want this salad. I don't want any croutons on it. Don't even put them there. Don't tempt me. And I want X, Y, Z. Well, the waiter is taking that order, but the waiter is dependent on the people in the kitchen to get that order right, to make the customer sitting at the table happy. And I'm sure some of you have seen times when it didn't work out right. The waiter was like, but I put it in this way. Well, let me go check with the cook. So we depend on each other every day. If a business is promising you to get books to you or shirts to you, they're not manufacturing those shirts, but they're counting on the supplier to do what he or she said so that they have the product to deliver to you. Well, let's bring it even closer. Let's say mom's going for a new job, dad's going for a new job. They've hired a babysitter. Baby's supposed to be here at 9 because I got to be there at 10, maybe a little traffic. If the babysitter doesn't show up, dad can't leave the baby. Dad may not get a job. And so us being accountable to other people is very important. And if the person that you are counting on doesn't deliver, it could mean disaster or failure. And so we really need to take more seriously our role of being accountable to other people. We sing this song, I kept thinking of this hymn, count on me for loving, hearted service, glad and free. And the thing is, God is gonna do his part, but the question is, can he count on us? Well, the book gave us some formula for accountability, and there were 5 components to this, and that's character, competence, commitment, consistency, and cohesion. When you put all of those together, then you have a person that you can count on. So let's go through those one by one. First, we'll take a look at character. Accountability begins with character. Character makes trust possible. And you need trust if you're going to be a leader or a good team member. People have got to be able to trust you to do what you said you would do or what your job description said that you were supposed to do. Because if you cannot trust someone, you will not count on them, and that causes friction in the environment, whether it's at home, work, school, or play. There is no substitute for character. If you got a bad character, it's not good. Character is very important, but character is not everything. Oh, well, praise the Lord. There's also competence. Like I said, character matters, but character has to be paired with competence. Dr. Maxwell gives the example of a surgeon, and he says, you know, a surgeon can be a bad character, but he could be a very good surgeon, or he could be a very good person, but not so good surgeon. In that case, who are you gonna pick? You want the good surgeon over the character. We'd like to have them both, but what this simply says, when it comes to being accountable, we need both character and competence. It's not enough to be a good person. Teams count on you having the ability and the proficiency to do the job. I know we've done job interviews and I don't know if Jen remember this one years ago. There was some young lady, I don't know if you were a part of this hiring process, but when we interviewed her, she said all of these things she could do with processing and what have you. And back then we weren't really, you know, you kind of take people at your word and they show you some work, but we didn't do the actual test. Yeah, she couldn't do what she said she could do. We could not count on her. And so now there was a slowdown in work production because we had to help her come up to speed, or either somebody else had to cover, or she had to go the long haul way of trying to get work done. So it's important that people count on you, can count on you, and that you're competent to do what you're supposed to do. And let me say this, if you don't know how to do something, don't fake it. There are some things you can't, because they're gonna find out, so it's better to be honest. And if you're a good character, then perhaps they'll give you some room to learn. You can learn, but don't tell me you know how to do something, and then I give you the assignment, and well, you just make up something. It's not gonna work, that's not good. So character and competence. Then commitment. It takes commitment from team members. I don't like fair weather team members, and I'm sure you don't either. You know, if things are good, if everything's happy, if the baby's not sick, if my dog's happy, then I'll be there on the job. But if you're dealing with a fair weather team member, that can make for some turbulent team experiences. Every time they have a family problem, challenge, they don't show up. Every time there's a birthday party, they're ready to go. Mardi Gras comes, they're ready to go. And you're thinking, we got a project in front of us. That shows a lack of character and competence and commitment. You don't want to be wandering. You don't want to have a team. You don't want even a family member. You're always wondering whether or not they're going to show up, whether or not they're going to stick with you when times are difficult or when it's clutch time and you're really dependent on them. And track record, if they're a shady character, you know, you will have some nervous moments. But we got to be able to be a stick-to-it kind of person. We got to make our commitments. Do what you say what you do. If you make a promise, you may, and we'll talk about this later, you may have to make a sacrifice to keep that promise. But y'all, we got to be, especially as Christians, we got to keep our word. We have to be people who are committed to what we say. Well, then let's go on. Not only character, competence, commitment, but consistency. See, it's one thing to do things, and when you show up, you do. He said, boy, when he shows up, he really plays well, but we don't know if he's going to show up today. You know, he's the best organist in town, but he only shows up 2 or 3 times a month. You know? And so consistency is another part of being countable. You want your teammates to have confidence in you, yes, to know that they can count on you day in and day out, not if you feel like it. And so you must have consistency in your work performance along with showing up in order for them to count on you. And you can look at some examples around. There are those kids in school who, believe it or not, won't miss a day of school the entire school year. And then there are those kids that are gonna have to go to summer school because they missed so much school during the school year. They were not consistent. I had one kid, very smart kid, but you're not showing up. We have to be consistent. The book talks about Greg Maddux, an Atlanta Braves pitcher who won over 200 games because he was consistent in his performance. But how was he consistent in his performance? Because he worked at it. He put in the extra. He went above and beyond to make sure personally he was consistent in what he provided to his team. But not only do we need those 4 things, we also need cohesion, that glue that holds us together. And cohesion in a team, in a family, in a church, it's got to be developed. It doesn't necessarily happen automatically. Now, there are a few situations where you get people with very common situations and they bond right away, but that's often not the case. So cohesion, we see, is the ability to hold together no matter how difficult the circumstances are. You're gonna stick together through thick and thin. And while I have the microphone, I'm that kind of person. If I make a commitment, I'm gonna stick with you, even when you're stuck in the mud. So let me tell you what happened on spring break. See, I'm from Arkansas, Arkadelphia, Arkansas, and I grew up in the country outside the city limits, about 12 miles. We did not live on a paved road. It's dirt and gravel and some grass, you know, depending on the time of the year. And every now and then a grader would come, because it was a county road, and every now and then when people were living there, the grader would come through and clean up the road for us a little bit. So we were back home last week, told you it was spring break, and we decided to go out and visit the property. And the old house where I grew up, it's leaning now and the floor's sinking in and all, but you know, it was just nostalgia. So we went to see it on Friday. But I think here in Texas, it rained all day Thursday, all day. Well, it did in Arkansas too. So as we were leaving the property in Arkadelphia out in the country, my husband, driving, who's not a country person, he was gonna go down the road a little bit because we stopped at my house. My grandparents' house was down the way, but it's really grown up down there. And there was a fork in the road because we had a cousin that lived on the other side of the Y. And I'm looking at it, and we get there, and I said, we need to go here. And he says, no, but there's water there. I said, but I'm looking at it, and I'm seeing gravel still on this part of the road because they've kept theirs. I'm looking on this side, and all I see is mud and dirt and grass. Which side did he choose? Because he didn't see water over here. We go down this side. And what I wanted him to do was, let's go to the Y. I'm thinking there's enough because there's a little raise there, and we could have just driven and just kind of turned around and gone back out. But no, you know how some, I won't give the gender, people do. He's gonna continue down this way because he thinks this is the way to go. And we went a few feet, and then he stopped to back up into more dirt and grass and mud. And so now we're just stuck halfway across the road. You're stuck in Arkadelphia. And so He doesn't know how to get unstuck. So his first thing is, let's call AAA. Well, let's pray that AAA will come out here to the country. And so when he calls AAA and he's trying to explain to the lady where we are, and then the lady said, well, ma'am, how far are you from the pavement? I said, ma'am, ain't no pavement out here. There's some back up there on the highway about a half a mile. But so she said, well, we can't get our trucks down there, and if they're gonna get stuck, so they need to make sure, so he'll assess the situation. And so the brother was really nice who came in, and he looked at it and kind of smiled and shook his head. And, but he ended up having to back all the way back out to the main road and turn around and back all the way back down into the property to pull us out. But thank God, in this case, we could count on AAA. Cannot count on my husband's sense of direction and driving in the mud. So we were sitting there. But the other part of countable, and so the kids were there. Now, J.E. did what he was supposed to do. He was behind us. He did what I thought we was going to do, go to the Y, make a little round turn, and go back. And he's pulling out, and he's going on, and then he stops because he realizes we're not going anywhere. So he took the kids on, and my husband said, well, you just go on with the kids, and I'll just stay here by myself. Now, I know him in the country. I mean, there's nothing out there. And it wasn't dark yet, but we didn't know how long it was going to take for AAA. But I'm committed, and so I stayed. And he's like, why did you stay here? I had a whole lot of thoughts in my head, but I'm committed. Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes when it's hard, when people haven't followed the directions that you've given them, if you are going to have commitment and cohesion, if we're stuck. And as I want to tell, I'm stuck with you through thick and thin, through good and bad. And some of you have had family situations where bad decisions were made and you're ready to go. No, you gotta hold together, even in the difficult times. Even when people say stupid stuff, and they will, they're human, you will think it's stupid. They may think it's smart, but that's not, we don't give up on them because they don't do the right thing. So a whole lot of detour, but stick together, even in the mud, stick together. Cohesion is that ability to hold together, and every team needs that. Your work needs you to be that way. Your family needs you to be that way. Your friends need you to be that way. Don't get mad at them because you went to all of their parties, but then your party was on a wrong date. If they're still your friends, I had my party and they didn't come. Well, maybe you picked the bad time. But accountability means having or being able to have faith in your teammates, your family, your friends, no matter what happens. They can count on you. You're not giving up. Well, let's go on. Found this quote by James Baldwin, a novelist and civil rights activist. He said, the moment we break faith with one another, the sea engulfs us and the light goes out. In other words, we stick through with each other, thick and thin, through the dark times, the bad times, because when everybody starts abandoning ship every time it gets difficult, we'll never have cohesion. You'll see what we're seeing a lot in America, a lot of broken families, because people couldn't stick with it during difficult times. I've seen a lot of people walk away from jobs because it was difficult. I'll never forget, we had one young person who had a job and she had to go in the refrigerator on the job, so she quit the job because she said it was cold in the refrigerator. I mean, you knew that was there when you took the job. Some things we gotta press through. I don't know if you had a hand up. Yes, ma'am. We're going to talk about that. There is a time when you realize this is not the team for you and that I can't commit to that team. So stick a pin in that. We'll get to that at the end, because there is sometimes you realize, you know what? This team is not working for me. And we've even told some people, this church may not work for you. That's one reason we do a new members class, so you know what we believe about the head of the church, the family. You know what we believe about speaking in tongues. You know what we believe about women speaking or doing. And so you can decide, can I follow this leadership? And if you can't follow a certain leadership, then you need to find another place. Don't throw it down. Don't talk about it. There was one lady who wanted to leave the church, and she wanted to go with another church, and she started, now you've been here all your life. You've been here, I done cried with you through a whole bunch of stuff, and now all of a sudden you're not being fed anymore. And this, I said, stop right there. Because right now we have a good relationship. But now if you feel like you have to throw dirt in order to leave, it's gonna mess it up. So you're released, you're free to go. If you feel like your time is up, just go in peace and don't tear the bridge down, because you may need to come back this way. But let's go on, because the thing is, either we're pulling together or we're pulling apart. You got to decide which way you want to go. And then be careful that you're not the one to break the trust of your team. It hurts the team, and it really hurts you whether you know it. And trust is not easily restored. When you do something foolish, when they were counting on you and you let them down, Proverbs 18:19 says, an offended friend is harder to win back than a fortified city. Once you do something, and this is what teenagers need to understand, once they lose the trust of their family, I gave you the car, you said you were going to be back at 10, you show back here at 11:30 with my wrecked car, and it smells like who knows what. You know, you broke my trust. It's going to be real hard to earn that back again. That's a principle of life. So we want to do our best not to break trust. Even if you have to not make a commitment, don't just not show up. Have the courage to say, you know what, I told you I was going to do X, Y, Z, but I am so sorry. And it needs to be a legitimate reason. This came up and my mother is on life support, whatever. It needs to be something legitimate. I have to go. But I've had people who, for whatever reason, at the 9th hour, you were counting on them to do something. They just, they just ghost you. Don't hear from them, you know. And so if you had told me, if you had a legitimate reason, or if you were just tired or whatever, tell me something. But don't just break my trust. It's really hard to earn it back. So when it comes to accountability, how do we become a better team member, a better player? Well, you need to examine yourself. And I tell people all the time, check the room when you walk in. Check the room. You need to learn to look and see if everybody's like, that's not a good sign. But if it's like their eyes light up and that's a good sign. So how do your teammates feel about you? And see, some of you don't want to know, but that's not good. You need to know if they want you there or not. And then, can you be depended on to do your part? Ask yourself, can they depend on me? Am I dependable? Whatever your part is, can your teammates depend on you when they need you? And then, do you perform and follow through in such a way that the team considers you somebody they can count on? Or you're that person, oh man, you know, Billy Bo got it, but you know how it is, man. We don't know, he might get it. If he gets it, it's good, but if not, that's not what we want to be as saints, as children of God. We want to perform, I don't care where it is, to the best of our ability for the glory of God. And then, is your integrity unquestioned? Do you mean what you say? Say what you mean. You're the same everywhere you go. They can count on you, your character. You're only as good as your word. If people can't count on you to do and to be who and what you say you are, that's not good. You're a shady character. And that's not what we want to be. How else can we evaluate that? Well, do you perform your work with excellence, or do you just do enough to get by? So are you competent to do it? And if you're not, if you know that there's something you lack, there's so many ways now. First of all, you can Google almost anything if you need help with it. So don't just say, well, I don't know how to do it. And, find out. Take a seminar, do an online course, do something. Are you dedicated to the team's success? Now, this is important. For the member and the leader need to look at this. Is this person really concerned about the team or about themselves? Are you committed to what we're doing here, or do you have a different agenda? Is this just a stepping stone? This is just something you want to put on your resume to get to the next place, and you really don't care what happens here. You just want to have your name on the document that said you were there. That's not good. Am I committed to the success of this job, this family, this church, wherever I am? And can you be depended on every time? Are you consistent? Or can they depend on me 3 out of 4? That fourth time may be very critical. And when it comes to cohesion, do your actions bring the team together? Things get better when you show up? Or do you cause division when you show up? I've been in organizations and on teams and in classes where there was some person, they were going to come on, hey guys, we got this together. And then there's somebody that was guaranteed to come in and cause a ruckus. I'll never forget, even in high school, there was a speech class we had. It was like the fun class. It's like your senior year. And most of us, the teacher, well, the guys loved it because she was a good-looking teacher. And so the guys had problems paying attention as it was. But then this one guy who just had to go above and beyond. And the days when he wasn't in class, it was a good day. Because when he showed up for class, he was going to be ruckus, saying crazy questions, just disrupting the unity. We need to be careful that our actions and our words bring people together, not cause division. So, if I'm going to be a better leader of accountability, these are some things that I need to do. I need to develop pride in my group membership. If it's something of value, we said it's bigger than one person. And so, come on, guys, this is who we are. You've seen, it was some show I was watching the other day, and the team was facing a championship thing. And so, they go and they give that locker room pep talk. This is who we are. We win. We stick together. We do that. Y'all, we need to do that. Develop pride in who we are. Even if you lose a game, even if you don't win the contract, still have pride in who you are. Convince your group that they are the best. They're the best, and that you say, well, that's not realistic. Be the best that they can be. They need to be their best. If anybody goes in, well, we're all right, but we're not, and so you're just going to do all right if that's your attitude. You need to go, you know what, we're at the top of our game. It doesn't matter what anybody else says about you, it's what do you believe about yourself. And then, as a leader, give recognition whenever possible. Great job. Man, you got us there. You pulled us. Thank you. Oh, you saved us with that. Give recognition for what people do. Do that for anybody listening online. Do that for your kids. Give recognition when they get it right. When, a lot of people have different philosophies. My dad gave money when we got A's and B's, and we were going to do it anyway. And so people say, I don't pay him to make that. Well, I really didn't make the good grades because he gave the money. It's what we wanted to do. But that was his way of saying, atta girl, proud of you. But give recognition, however that may be. Some people get to go out for a special dinner or celebrate. Celebrate the positives. And then encourage organizational mottos. Doing life God's way, making champions for Christ, get better service above self. Make sure that your group knows this is who we are, this is what we stand for, in their names, their symbols, and their slogans. That helps to bring with the cohesion. We know who we are. And then establish your group's worth by examining and promoting its history and values. This is what we've done through the years. We've been here this long and we've done this. Sometimes if people come in, and even with a church like this, y'all see the people who come in and they see this building, they don't know that where this church started was in my little garage on Willow Springs Drive. Far cry from here. I did not see this where we are today at the time, but we were just being obedient to what God said. Literally, a garage that didn't have heating or air conditioning, so we couldn't last there very long. But that's where we got started. But then God blessed us to move to a chapel of a church that sponsored us, and then we were blessed to move to a church that was going out of business, and then we were blessed to find this land and to build a building over there. And so people need to know we haven't always been where we are and how we got there and what the steps were to get there. It took a whole lot of commitment and cohesion and character and sacrifice in order for that to happen. But getting back to her question, and we'll hit this up a little bit more in the price tag, the cost of teamwork, if you cannot commit for whatever reasons, now each situation is different. If it's a family, we tell women, now we're not one of those that say stay there until he chokes you to death and beat you, or vice versa. Some of you women are violent. But so we're not saying that you make a commitment to somebody who's trying to kill you. That's unreasonable. But just because you're having a bad day, you're not feeling it, they're not a king, that's not a reason to quit. But if you're on a job, now this is a sticky one, just talked with someone a couple of days ago. If you're working with people who will not commit to what the job stands for, then you may have to help them out the door. If childcare especially, and it's really hard, it's hard to find childcare workers through here, 99% of that job is showing up. You cannot watch children if you're not there. And so you have a lot of people, I want off for this and I want out for that, and they've got schedules. And so if I have somebody I cannot depend on to work their schedule, I need to let you go so I can get somebody who can. And then people say, oh, well, you're being mean and she's got to pay bills. Well, she should have thought about that when she kept taking off. And that's a sticky situation because we have compassion for people, but that gets back to the building what the team culture is, building the cohesiveness. They need to know this is what we stand for. We're providing quality care, so you got to be here. Nobody likes high turnover, but as Jan taught with the bad apple, but if there's a bad apple in there, you can't ignore it, because if this person is slacking on the job and staying on the job and still getting the pay, then it's going to cause other people, well, darn, if he's not having to do it, well, let me take a little time off. Y'all know how we are, human nature. So we have to deal with it. But let's go on to the law of the price tag. I think it further touches on some of that, when do I pick up and when do I run? When to fold, what is it, when to fold them and when to hold them. So the law of the price tag, this says that the team fails to reach its potential when it fails to pay the price. What does that say to you? I'm not going to meet my potential when I don't pay the price. You've heard the old expression, you get what you pay for. This law says that in a more structured way. So let's take a look at it. Pay me now? Yeah, but you're gonna pay. Right, you're gonna pay. And so there's a story of a business that failed to pay the price in the book. Y'all remember Montgomery Ward? Anybody still see Montgomery Ward around? No, there's a reason. They failed to pay the price. The great thing about Montgomery Ward is the guy who started it, he had the great idea because he was in the country. You know, in country, people had to pay the price that other people didn't pay. So it was costing them a lot more and taking them a lot longer to get their goods. And so Montgomery Ward thought, you know what? I'll get the stuff, bring it here, and I'll sell it to them for cheaper. Well, it took off. That's when they had the catalogs. There's even a old song we used to sing back when I was in high school that had Montgomery Ward in there in the catalog, you know, and they would order stuff. And so it took off. He did great. He did well. He soared to the top. He was just, you know, killing it. But then cities changed. Not so many people were out in the rural anymore. They were in the urban areas, and they could walk up and down the streets and buy what they wanted in the shops. Well, the owners of Montgomery Ward by this time saw this and they thought, we've been doing good, so we're not going to change. And so they failed to change. Well, there's an old saying too, if you don't do it, somebody else will. So Sears, you heard of them? Yeah, and they're still here. Came along and they set up the retail shops where the people could go in and buy their whatever they were buying, machines, wash machines, you know, the little gadgets, whatever, farm tools, from the store. And they kept popping up. And so Montgomery Ward saw this and business was slipping, but they were still slow about changing. Then finally, when they decided to get into the market, Sears had already taken off. And sometimes it's just too late to get in the game to win. You know, you've seen a team where the coach might have been mad, well, I have, especially in high school, maybe mad with the star player, and so they won't put him in, but the team is doing bad, but then when he finally puts him in, it's too late because they're too far gone. Or that fourth leg of a relay race, you know, the person is a super duper runner, but the first, second, or third leg got you so far behind, it was too far to catch up. Well, that's kind of like it was with Montgomery Ward. By the time they got in the game, they put some retail stores up, but their sales, their profits kept failing, and eventually they went out of business. The owners were not willing to get out of their comfort zone because of their past success and take a risk. And it was a calculator, but then again, it was not such a foolish risk had he just looked around to see what was happening and try to break new ground. And like we said, Sears did, and they became the most successful department store chain in the country at the time. And as we know, times have changed. Sears is no longer at the top, you know, and so you have to keep changing with the times, keep reinventing yourself, so to speak, if you're going to keep up. And one reason that teams fail to pay the price, like Montgomery Ward, to reach their potential is that they misunderstand this law of the price tag. So y'all, you need to understand, I don't know what things you have going on in your life or your business, but you need to understand the law of the price tag. And let me say, this is even true of intangibles like marriage. You never get to a point, okay, I've sacrificed enough, washed enough, cooked enough, I'm done, I'm quit. You don't get to quit. You're gonna always pay the price. So let's go on. We've got 4 truths about the law of the price tag. Number 1, the price must be paid by everyone. Everybody's gotta pay a price, no free lunch. You give up something to be on the team, something you've gotta sacrifice, but you gain authenticity because you're part of the group. The team doesn't suppress individual accomplishment. As a matter of fact, it empowers it. That's why you're on the team, because you bring something to the team. People are like, they just don't want me to shine. They jealous of me. No, they just want you to do your part within the parameters of teamwork. And so if everyone doesn't pay the price to win, if somebody decides, well, I'm not doing my part because he didn't call my name at the meeting, he didn't recognize me, and so I'm just gonna sit down on it. And so therefore, everyone will pay the price by losing out on something. So the price has to be paid by everybody. Everybody on your team has got to contribute. You don't want people, I don't know, back in the day when I was little, we used to have those little red wagons and we would take turns riding on it. You didn't want that person riding the wagon, dragging their feet behind you because it made the load heavier to go. So you don't want people on the team not paying the price, dragging their feet, slowing everybody else down. So not only must the price be paid by everyone, everybody's got to give something. It's got to be paid all the time. John Maxwell calls this the destination disease. We've arrived. Try to avoid that. I made it now. I don't have to do anything. And sadly, I've seen this a lot in life, where people worked hard, they did a whole lot to get where they were, whether it was a marriage, whether it was a job, education, but then they get something, and then they're like, okay, that's it. So they stop working, they stop striving, they stop trying, they stop paying the price. But they think they're still gonna reach their potential, like, well, I put in enough time, so I ought to be able to just coast in. We don't get to coast in life. You could do that at riding your bicycle a little bit, but if you don't start back to pedaling, eventually you're gonna stop. And so one of the truths of the price tag is that somebody's gotta be paying the price all the time. And then the third thing is that the price increases if you wanna improve. And we're not talking about dollars and cents. I mean, in some cases it might be, but you're gonna have to work outside of the box, think outside of the box, you're gonna have to grow. Sometimes it's just putting in more time to think and to plan, to put things in place. But if you wanna change, improve, and keep winning at basketball, you may have been doing this level when you were in high school, but when you get to college, you think you can play with the college boys playing like you did in 6th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade. No, you're gonna have to improve. You're gonna have to up your game. Get in the weight room. You're gonna have to pay the price. You see, nobody moves closer to his or her potential without paying in some way to get there. And if you do pay to get your degree and you never go to college, you may find yourself in a lawsuit when you claim that you have a degree that you never showed up to get. So you have to pay the price. There are some people who like to go to school and they want to cheat and get answers for everybody else. That's great. You wrote down their answers, but you still don't know anything because you just wrote down things without entering them into your head. As I've told people once, I went to school with some people and I was in education. I loved what I was always excited when all that through when I had to read 100 children's books for one class, but at the end of the day, it was good. You know, I have that, you know, you always have, I have that in the little cards and everything that describe the books, but then there were others that were always trying to find some way around doing the work. They didn't work on improving their grammar, their writing, a whole lot of things, and so the price tag had my kid been stuck in their class. We left Arkansas. I was like, I don't want my kid to be taught by you because you didn't pay the price if they got their degree to get the education that goes with that degree. And that's why too often we find people have degrees and we're scratching our head wondering, how did they get it? Because they didn't pay the total price. They cut short a lot of the education that they were supposed to get. They got a degree, but they didn't get the knowledge to go with that degree. And so if you're gonna keep growing, you gotta keep paying the price, keep studying, keep working, keep trying, and even when you get that big job, don't go dormant. Keep learning, stay ahead of the game. Y'all remember the Hidden Figures of that lady who learned how to do the computer when nobody else could? She went and kind of got a book out of the library, a little unethical, but still, it shouldn't have been an issue for her to get it. But she knew she needed to go above and beyond if she was gonna grow. And not only did she open the door of success for her, but for all of the other women who were working with her. So the price increases. And then the fourth thing is the price never decreases. There's often a mistaken belief that a time will come when success will get cheaper. That's usually a scam. Oh, I don't have to do all this. I'll just pay this and I'll get the same insurance that I got over there. Yeah, and when you get ready for somebody to pay for that broken whatever it is, you're gonna find there's no company there. It was cheap, all right, but you just didn't get anything for it. So make sure that you are not looking for the easy way out, the cheap way out, not trying to do quality work. And that's with a whole lot of things. Sometimes cheaper is not better when you're doing your comparison shopping. We're trying to do less. Sometimes, as we say, you get what you pay for. But let's stop looking in life for things to be easier, less. Now, we grew up with this philosophy that if you, and there's a lot of truth to it, and because I keep telling my grandkids, if you study hard now, put in the hard work, get your education, get your knowledge, then when you get to your career, it's not as difficult as having to make sure you gotta work the clock all the time. That's the only way you're gonna get anywhere. You learn to do some other things on the side. As they say, that money that's working for you even when you're not working. So you work harder either now or later, but you gotta pay the price, and there's never not a price. So there are two kinds of people that suffer from the law of the price tag, two people who violate this law, just two categories. Those who don't realize the price of success. Some people think, oh, I just do me a few TikTok videos and voila, I'm a success. Maybe, maybe not. And then those who know the price, they know what it takes. They're just not willing to do it. So we've had a lot of young people to come through Cornerstone that wanted to start churches on their own. A lot of them didn't realize the price that it took to build a church. They just wanted our church to throw some money at them so they could go and get a building and do this, but they didn't have the sustainability. They didn't know how to keep it. Sometimes even they didn't have the character to keep it, but they certainly didn't have the business sense. And so a lot of times the reason people don't succeed is they just don't realize how much it's gonna cost. Sometimes when pastor just gets up here and he does all his crazy talk and he's doing now and it just looks so easy, but what they don't see is he's already built a team. There's a media team, there's a music team, there's the custodial team, there's a childcare, there's a whole bunch of people that over time that he's worked to put together. It's more than just getting in front of a mic and say, y'all come. Because folks are looking at, who are you and why should I listen to you? So there are those who don't realize it, but then there are those who's like, that's gonna take too much of my time. We were talking with one of our grandkids and my husband was trying to get her to do it, and he was like, nope, ain't going to school that long, not studying that hard, not putting it. So she realized it was gonna take more, and she's like, I'm not willing to pay the price. Don't be those people. If it's something that you really believe that God is calling you to, the price will be worth it. And what is that price? What is the price of teamwork? One, it is sacrifice. You may have to sacrifice some time, some sleep, some money, some comfort. But if you're a part of the team, that's what you do. Maybe that sacrifice is I do have to go back and study and get more training in my nursing, in my education, in my electronics, whatever it is. And the price is also being unselfish. The team is not about you. You're a part of the team. So the team doesn't stop work because, well, I got this side gig, so I'll catch y'all, let's just hold up and we'll get back. No. You got to do your side gig at side gig time, but this is team time. And if you're on a job, y'all don't cheat. As Christians, let's not cheat the job. Do the job when you're on the job, because that makes the church look bad. But sacrifice, time, personal development are all prices that we have to pay. But as one gentleman said, the price of failure, the failure to pay, is much greater. Because if you don't make those time and financial, personal development things, you may find yourself in poverty because you didn't get the job or you lost the job. I've seen people lose good jobs because they weren't willing to get to work on time, do what the boss asked them to do, work with other people. I mean, on the job, you just got not to be selfish and loud and crazy. Dejection. There have been some sports guys. I mean, it's mind-boggling to me the money that these professional players make and often end up in poverty, depression, and dejection. After making millions, they've made more in 3 or 4 years than a lot of us make in a lifetime, and they end up with nothing. Why? Because they didn't pay the price to stay there. So they end up with a downtrodden, dejected spirit. So how do we become better? There's an activity if you had the book, but if not, like I said, if you email me, I can send the PowerPoint to you, or if you don't have the book. In the book, the questions are there, I believe. But the challenge for you to become a better member is to write down some of the things that you desire to accomplish in the next 1 to 5, 10 years, however. What is it that you want to do in your life? What do you want to have done? I want to write a book. I want to build a car. I want to build a house. I want to buy this. Whatever your goals are. And then think about that. You got down your goals. This is what I desire to do. I want to be the piano. I want to play in Carnegie Hall, whatever your desires are. And then look back, step 2, over your list, and see which of them are you willing to give up for the sake of your team. In other words, if what I'm trying to do conflicts with my team's success, my family's success, my job success, which one of these things am I willing to take off of my list? When our goals conflict with the goals of the team, and this gets back to your question, sister, you got 3 choices. When we're in this constant conflict, day in, day out, every day you go to the job, there's a problem. You can either let go of what your goal was, what you thought should be. As I told them, I'm gonna work on this sermon, die a little more. Die to self. That was what I wanted, but you know what? I don't have to have it. I'm going to let it go. And then it could be that I just need to put it off. I can't do it right now because it's press time. We've got to get this done. It's going to take another year, then we'll do this, and I'll get this position. So you may just have to put your goal, your desire off for a little bit. But then the third choice is, if you're not willing to put it down or put it off, and the job, the team is still pressing for it, then it may be time for you to take your exit. Because you're there conflicting with the team, and it's unfair for you to ask the team to put aside the team goals for your personal business. That's a recipe for disaster. If you're working and there's a CEO and he's coming down to check on it, and you're the team member that's always gone and trying to work and do this, but you're not doing the job that you're paid for, it's time for you to start looking for another job. But see, the problem is a lot of people are doing all of this stuff before you're able to go off to that other job. I'm all for young people pursuing your dreams. We're not saying don't pursue your dreams, but you better make sure you got some way to pay the house note before you go off. Don't quit your job. And it's so foolish. I've seen so many, I can't stand him. I'm just out of here. And then you come to, I ain't gonna say this, but you come to the church now begging because you quit. When you are healthy, able, you just had a bad attitude. We have to grow up. Gotta grow up. So those are our choices. So how do I become a better team leader? If I'm gonna be a better team member, I've gotta do those things. Know when to put it off, put it up, and quit. But if I'm a leader of that team, I've got these team members, if I'm the head of my household, single mom, single dad, married family, whatever the situation is, you must convince your team to sacrifice for the good of the team. If we're in this together, we're in this together. And a lot of places, the reason people are so distant from one another is because there's not been that umbrella of we're all here together. We're all in this same tent. And if we stay here, we're good. So you must convince the team to sacrifice for the good of the team. And how do you do that? You start by modeling it. You can't be a leader just barking out orders to y'all do this, y'all do that, but you need to start by modeling sacrifice. You sacrifice your comfort, you sacrifice your time. Make financial sacrifices if and when necessary. You keep growing. You know what? I need to learn how to do this. I think that was one of the blessings for me. I wasn't doing it to get more money. I just wanted to be better me. When I did the certification for John Maxwell, and there was a whole lot of reading while I was still doing all of the stuff here at church. But it was for me to broaden my horizon, to make me better for the sake of the team. And then empower others. Not only do I keep growing and make sacrifices, but I empower others. Let them do what they can do. Don't squelch them. And then sometimes as a leader, you have to make some difficult decisions. They may not understand why you're making this decision, why you're saying no, why you have to do this. But you have to make difficult decisions for the sake of the team because they may not understand the price of what they're doing. But as a leader, you need to understand. And if you do these things, if you're making the sacrifice, if you're modeling this, if you're empowering them, showing them how to elevate others, then you have some credibility to ask others to do the same. That is the law of the price tag. There's always a price to pay. Man, I did a lot of talking tonight. It's already 8 o'clock. Well, I got started a little bit late, but anyway. So that's it in a nutshell, ladies and gentlemen. Any questions, comments, something that was fuzzy or light bulb moment you want to share with somebody else in the room that may help them? No? Good? Good. Well, thank you all, and thank you, team in the back. I appreciate you. I don't know what happened with this PowerPoint, but anyway, I am just grateful to God, and I pray that you all are hearing some things that will help you, that you can put into place. And we're always looking here for team members when it comes to teaching, because we're in need of teachers. Teachers for children, teachers for adult class, teachers for UTC classes. Of course, there's always, room for singers in the choir. There's room for ushers. There's room for greeters, and as public service announcement, we need a custodian. And so, because, you know, our dear Lena and Joel are going back to the Philippines, so seriously, we do. We are, I think, next month. And so we're like, you know, and good help is hard to find. And they were countable. We could count on them. They went above and beyond. Brother Joel was a pastor in the Philippines, but he wasn't too haughty and high-minded. Now, you would catch him around here singing and whistling songs. It was just a beautiful thing. We could put together and build things. We could count on him. And Miss Lena would take care of all of my flowers. I don't know what we're going to do now. I have to find some, and I need to find another flower whisperer. But it's just important that we are accountable. People can count on us, trust us, and that we all are willing to pay our price for success. Amen? Father, I just thank you for this tonight, and I pray that you be glorified, and I pray that you show the people in this room and people who are watching online what it is they need to do to improve in these two areas of paying